So you better get them now while they're hot. No pun intended. I thought I'd come inside today and do a video. It's a little cloudy and it just rained yesterday, and quite frankly, I'm pretty tired. I'm pretty exhausted. As you know, Carolyn's been sick. She's, just so everybody knows, I think she's getting better. I think she thinks she's getting better. And we've got her on all kinds of natural remedies, holistic remedies. For those who have not heard, we had to take Carolyn to the emergency room a couple weeks ago. She was having some terrible issues. I'm not going to discuss what it was, because then everybody's going to have a solution or tell me how terrible we are for not getting the operation. They want her to get a surgery. And the risk, in my opinion, now this was completely her opinion. I didn't give any of my opinion when she made the decision. But the risk of getting a surgery is just insane. Why would I go and get a surgery when there's a serious risk of death or great bodily harm, or cure it naturally without much risk at all except a lot of pain and sickness? At nighttime is when it's the worst for her. So I'm making teas and making sure she's getting her vitamins and the medicines that she needs. It's not medicine, it's not prescription, it's holistic stuff. So I haven't had a lot of time to focus on videos. That being said, it seems, until like yesterday, that people are paying attention to the videos, and I appreciate that, the support during this time that people are watching the videos. So I thought I'd talk about the wood stove again. I had an interesting question. I installed this wood stove myself, and I built the whole tiny house maybe what, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. So to me, it seems like it was yesterday when I built this, and everybody should know exactly what I did because I just made videos about it. But it's been a while. So I thought I'd go through some of the construction process, because some people may actually want to have to build it in themselves. I know there's a family on YouTube that wants to install a wood stove, and now, I'm not saying everybody should have skills and be. They said that they had a quote done and it was going to cost $10,000 to put in, and I kind of can imagine that. The wood stove itself is $2,600, and if you put in a rock wall or some sort of wall that absorbs heat like you're supposed to, it could get kind of expensive. Of course, I use this little metal sheeting material, and I'm going to flip the camera up a little bit. I put the metal material up on the ceiling and everything. I really like this stuff. It's pretty cheap. I think it was $6 a sheet. I'm not even sure it was that much. You get them at Home Depot at the roofing section. Now there's a gap in this where you can, I think it's an inch gap, and you can buy little spacers online so you have a space in there. And what that does is it keeps it cool. It's kind of amazing. The outside of that metal will be pretty warm to the touch, but you put your hand in there and everything's nice and cool. It's kind of amazing how that works. When I start a wood stove, I put 2 logs down at the bottom, and we're going to call that north and south. So I put 2 logs. These are huge for this time of the year. Don't use anything, well, I guess if you don't live in a tiny house, you might need something this big. But you put 2 like this, and then you put kindling in between it. So we have a bunch of kindling here that you would put in there. And then on top of that, you put 2 pieces on top. I'm just using it as a demonstration. Then you put 2 more on top of that going north and south. So the 2 on the bottom, north and south, 2 in the middle, east and west, 2 on the top, north and south. I'm going to shut the door here. We'll see how that goes. When I put the kindling on the bottom and I stack it like I just showed you, it seems like all of it catches on fire. You can see everything's on fire now. So I like it this way. Now the objective to this is to get the stove hot enough that you start getting a draw into the chimney. Heat rises. So when your chimney is cold, it doesn't burn very well. So you want to get that chimney to heat up. So I leave the door open like I showed you. I get that chimney hot where it will start to go on its own. If you have a problem where smoke is spewing out as you're trying to light it, that's because your chimney's not hot enough. Now I've heard people say they take a blow dryer and heat up their chimney, or they'll take a torch like this and heat up their chimney. I mean, I guess you could. I don't know how important that is. My chimney is, I feel like, is pretty tall, and so it takes a lot of effort to get everything to warm up in there. Now, I did use a single wall here, so that causes me a little bit of an issue. You have single wall or double wall or triple wall. Single wall is, as it sounds, it's one layer of metal, but you're supposed to use double wall. Double wall is one layer of metal like that, and then a layer of insulation that goes around it, and then another layer that goes around the insulation. So that's double wall, 2 layers of metal, and sandwiched in between is insulation. Now the chimney doesn't ever get hot enough, so you could have a creosote problem. Of course, you're supposed to run firewood that is 20% moisture level or less. That just does not create any creosote. Now with oak, you should let it dry 2 to 3 years. With other woods, kind of like poplar wood, it only took 6 months for poplar to dry. Sycamore, about 6 months. You're not supposed to use pine or cedar. I know people in the Northwest is going to scream about that. Of course you got to use pine. We don't have anything else up here. But the thing is, you're going to have all that sap. That sap is water. The smoke has water in it. So you're taking those wood particles, that soggy wood particle, and you're sticking it to the side of the chimney. And eventually that's going to build up a big tarry substance, and it's very flammable. So if you get a spark to go up there, you'll have a chimney fire, which is pretty dangerous actually. Another indicator is your window will get plastered with thick tarry substance. It just stains the window. It's hard to get off. Now what I did when we had this problem, when we first moved here, we didn't have dry wood. We had no choice but to burn wet wood. I would take a wet wipe with a little bit of ash on there, and that does seem to take it off pretty easy that way. This is the 4th burn, and you can see the window is quite clean. We have 15 years worth of firewood, and people are going to say you can't have 15 years worth of firewood. The fan just started. That's a heat powered fan. A lot of people ask me where to get it. I just got it off a YouTube advertisement. You can probably Google it and find it. I don't think it's that great. It doesn't seem to throw out much wind at all, but it's kind of neat to watch. So, but the key to this wood stove is the 20% or less. You have those reburners in there. Those reburners burn the smoke, which is pretty nice. That makes this thing very efficient. About 80%, this particular one. I think now you can get them about 95% efficient. If you got wet firewood, that smoke is wet. So it hits those reburners and it won't light. The other thing is if you're burning wet wood, you're using like 70% of the heat in the wood stove just to burn water. People say, oh, well, your stove will last throughout the night. If you burn it like this, it'll last throughout the night too. You won't have a flame. The flame dies down within an hour or two. But these new efficient wood stoves, they got all this insulating. They call it fire brick, but it's not fire brick. It's actual insulation. Fire brick holds that heat in for hours. So this stove will stay warm for about 8 hours. Now I let the temperature in the house get up about 90 degrees, somewhere around there, and then I let it drop all day long until it gets to about 65. This morning it was chilly in here. I started shivering. It was 65 degrees, 64 degrees, and Carolyn saw that I was shivering, so she said, go ahead and start a fire. I was talking about the chimney and got distracted. So inside I have single wall, but when I get through the attic, it goes into a triple wall. So I was telling you about double wall, you have 2 layers of metal. Triple wall, you have 3 layers. And it's important that you have 3 layers, 2 layers of insulation and 3 layers of metal outside. Because it gets so cold outside, you want to keep that chimney hot so you can continue to get that draw, that heat rises. If you hit a pocket of cold up there in that chimney, well, first, if you have wet wood, creosote would instantly just solidify and stick to the chimney. But you're never going to be able to get a good fire going because your chimney's not hot enough. When I start a fire, I let it run for about 15 minutes. That's what the instruction says. I shut the door, and if I see the flame dying down too much, I go ahead and open the door back up because I know the chimney isn't hot enough yet. So the question that was asked, I'm going to move you around here, was this box at the ceiling here. This box here. This is called an attic box. Now, I have mine much lower than needed. Carolyn and I just like the look of it, and we didn't want to cut it when we built the house. This box actually goes through the ceiling. And then on top of this box, you have this little shroud that sits on top of it around the chimney. The reason you have this box here is because in the attic, you don't want things falling up against the chimney, like insulation, or if you throw something up there, you don't want that to hit the chimney. So they put this box around the chimney keep things from hitting it. See, I can touch that. I can't touch the chimney, but I can touch this. This is not hot at all. What you have is you have this pipe, the single wall, that stops right here at this attic box. On the other side of that right here is that triple wall, sits right on top of it. You only need it to drop down maybe 2 or 3 inches. I forget what the specification was, but we just like the look of it. We was gonna cut it. I didn't really want to cut it. Now, you can buy all these components at the Tractor Supply store in a set. Now, you'll notice that I don't have a vent, flapper vent there. That's per the EPA's regulations. The EPA doesn't want you to put one there because people will say, that holds the heat in. Well, it doesn't hold the heat in. Heat rises. You're not going to stop heat from rising. It's just what it does. Heat goes through the ceiling. That's why you put insulation, because heat goes right through it. What you're doing is you're restricting the airflow. So that means that you're holding smoke inside the box here, keeping the reburners from burning the smoke. Every time I make a video like this, I get people telling me that you can make your own wood stove. Well, okay, if you're talented, you can make your own wood stove. But I can guarantee you it's not going to burn as efficiently as this one. And like that couple on YouTube who wants to have a wood stove but can't afford $10,000 to put one in, the reason this is happening, whether it's right or wrong, doesn't matter, is people are building wood stoves and it sends out a bunch of smoke into the atmosphere. Well, then the neighbors complain, the EPA complains, the environmentalists complain that we're harming the environment, we're harming asthma victims and all that. So they want you to buy these so you're not putting smoke out in the atmosphere. I mean, you can't see any smoke coming out of this. I don't understand why you, other than you can't afford it, why you wouldn't get one of these, because it cuts down how much firewood you need. We use a cord a year. That's 3 truckloads. I have a small truck, 4-cylinder truck. And so I hear in a regular size house, it uses 4 cords of firewood. That's about 12 truckloads. If you're using a regular wood burning stove, it's going to burn through it really fast, no efficiency, and all that smoke that you're producing goes out the chimney. That smoke is wood particles. You're sending wood particles out the chimney, so you're wasting firewood. So if you could use this, that hard labor you put into the firewood, you're going to be using more of the wood inside where you want it. The other thing is people refuse to let their wood dry. They make an argument every time. And it's pure laziness, and I don't even understand how this laziness actually makes you have to do less work. So I want to dry my firewood. I want 20% or less. So what did I do? I cut firewood and I let it sit. I stacked it up just like you would wet firewood. You just let it stack there and sit for a year. And then you don't use it until it's dry. But for some reason, people want to work harder by cutting more firewood because you're using 70% of the firewood just to burn water, and makes all kinds of excuses why you're not just going to let it dry. Well, it burns through the night this way. But you're not getting the heat out of it that you want. It doesn't make any sense being lazy by letting firewood sit there and dry. The other day someone says, well, you could just get a kiln and dry it that way. A kiln. I live off grid. Where the heck am I going to find the power to run a kiln? Secondly, why do I even have a wood stove if I'm going to run a kiln? Why not just get an electric furnace and heat my house with the electric furnace? Or if you have a gas kiln, same principle, why just cut your firewood 2 years in advance and then you have dry firewood that runs perfectly. Now, some people's going to say, well, what do you do that first year? Well, agreed. That first year we were here, it was a nightmare trying to figure out how we were going to burn firewood. This thing didn't want to light. It was terrible. We did have some poplar, and I used the poplar until it ran out. The poplar probably made it till about December. So if you could find a poplar or a sycamore, they dry out pretty fast. So if you could cut that down in the springtime, poplar does not have the BTUs that oak does. The thing is, here's what I see, is around here, when it gets really cold, everybody starts up their chainsaws because they don't have any firewood and their furnace isn't keeping up. So you see them out there, you're cutting firewood in 12 degree weather or 0 degree weather. You're out there freezing to death trying to cut firewood so you can run fire that night. I don't understand that mentality, the procrastination until it's too late. So the EPA does want to ban these. They've been trying to ban them for years. I think around 2015 they started putting all these regulations on them. It shut down tons of corporations that used to make these wood stoves. Even the builder of this wood stove, Wood Pro, has closed up shop and started a new company. That is the goal, is to run these prices up so high that only rich people can afford them, and there's only a few companies making them. People are going to say, well, they have tax credits on them. Okay, that's just the right hand not talking to the left hand. So I would really suggest following the rules because it's easier to run. Less firewood to use, and we're not putting out that smoke so your neighbors will complain. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where the USDA is banning canning lids. So if I can inspire you to work smarter, not harder, so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.